The final conflict, third in the Omen series, has Sam Neill stepping into Damien's shoes. That's right, Alan Grant's a bad guy. Following the last film, Damien, now in his 30s, finds himself the head of the Thorn Corporation, and like Gregory Peck before him, he's deep into politics, and controlling the world, basically. He's also amassed an army of followers who obey his every command, like killing babies. I'm dead serious, he's killing babies this time. Essentially, the whole film sets up this huge battle between the Desolate One, Satan himself, and the Heavenly Angel, or whatever you're calling him this week, as everyone involved awaits the second coming of Christ. The movie explains that there are 3 stars that are going to converge on March 24th, and when this happens, the Lord Jesus Christ will be reborn, similar to how the Antichrist was born as Damien in the first film. This time, there's a small sect of priests who have acquired the 7 daggers of Megiddo. Yeah, the daggers that were featured in the last 2 films. Their plan is to follow Damien and attack him when his guard is down, and boy do they fail. One guy actually attempts to kill him during a live broadcasted interview and ends up as a crispy critter. Another priest attempts to lure Damien into a trap, only to be outsmarted. It goes beyond the typical murders and suicides of the last 2 films, although don't get me wrong, this one has its share of brutal scenes. Damien has fully embraced his destiny as the devil's son, and we're fully aware that everyone working under him is actually a Satanist, begging to carry out his orders. Eventually, Damien befriends a journalist and also seduces her son to his cause, making him go out and spy on his secretary, Harvey. The tension mounts when Damien orders his disciples to murder every male child who is born on March 24th in order to ensure that the newly born Christ is destroyed. Damien even tells his secretary to murder his own child, who Harvey swears was born just minutes before midnight on March 23rd. Of course, Damien can't be convinced.
Now, if Abraham was willing to slay his own son for the love of his God, why would you do the same for mine?
Now, this isn't really a horror film. It's more of a biblical thriller with a few horror elements thrown in, especially toward the end of the film. Depending on what you were expecting, it's either the worst or the best in the series. For me personally, I enjoyed it the most. Sam Neill is convincing as the adult Damien, who I felt was really snotty and unlikable in the past films. He almost has you thinking he's a decent guy. Hey, in a world where we get detestable characters like Joffrey Lannister and Draco Malfoy, who don't have a shred of dignity, I almost wouldn't mind working for Satan if it ends up being this guy. The film actually makes you question good and evil. I suppose it's going to have different meanings depending on which faith you follow. It heavily references the Book of Revelations and the Bible, much like the last 2 films, but Damien actually compares hell to the kingdom of heaven, as saying that hell is actually a paradise, and that the vision we mortals have of it is actually a fabrication. A really chilling scene is where Damien actually denounces Jesus Christ. It's a chilling monologue full of cryptic visuals. In fact, this is a really good-looking film. The cinematography and the lighting are top-notch. It has an atmosphere that is very different from the last 2 films, but it works in a subtler way. Jerry Goldsmith is back composing the score in what is probably his most epic work in the series. It probably won't give you any nightmares, and I have to admit its ending is a real disappointment, but up until the last 15 minutes, it's a worthy conclusion. Now, I'm aware that there's a 4th film in the series, as well as a remake. I haven't seen either one, but I have read the abysmal reviews, and I've seen snippets from either film, so I'll go over them briefly, just from what little I experienced. Omen 4: The Awakening was a made-for-TV film that was 20th Century Fox's attempt to reinvigorate the series in the 90s. It deals with a girl named Delia, who as it turns out is this film's Antichrist. So yeah, it has very little connection to the past 3 films. Here's a spoiler that I dug up. Delia is actually Damien's daughter, so technically it is the 4th in the franchise, and maybe if I do 31 DOS 17, I'll give it an honest look, but for now, I really just want to have fun, and from what I've seen and heard, this one is really underwhelming. Then there's the inevitable remake, released on, you ready for this? June 6th, 2006, at 6:06 in the morning. I'm dead serious. At the very least, it's a great marketing campaign. It stars Liev Schreiber, Cotton Wary from the Scream films, playing Robert Thorne. I skimmed through this one, and from what I saw, it looks like a shot-for-shot remake of the original. I didn't come across one scene that looked original. It's all there, from the nanny hanging herself, to the cemetery scene, to that final shot of Damien looking back at the camera. Again, I wanted to have fun with this year's films, and this one just didn't look like a good time. So the first 3 films are pretty good, and it makes for a decent trilogy. They get a bit repetitive, but the imagery, the atmosphere, and yes, even some of the characters are what makes them memorable. Tune in tomorrow and we'll take a look at another franchise.